Was President-elect Donald Trump early Wednesday morning after his stunning defeat of Democratic rival Hillary Clinton in a long and hard-fought battle for the White House. Mr. Trump's unlikely win sent shockwaves through the political establishment and around the world. So just how did he do it, and are there lessons in his victory for both parties? Let's ask Wall Street Journal Potomac Watch columnist Kim Strassel, editorial board member Joe Rago, columnist Mary Anastasia O'Grady, and assistant editorial page editor James Freeman. So, Kim, welcome to New York.
Hello.
Okay, so how did Donald Trump do it?
Well, look, first of all, I think you've got to remember it was his message out there, and many of these things, you look at the people that he won in the end. A lot of union households that Hillary Clinton should have done much better on, manufacturing states, energy states. You know, this was a message to working white Americans that resonated in the end. And I think he also had some good ground game help from the RNC. He
did better among union workers than any Republican since Walter Mondale in 1984, and of course that was then Ronald Reagan rather, and that was the landslide. So you're saying was it the economic message? Is that what it was?
It was the economic message. These were left behind workers, people who believe that Washington is not working for them, and I think his policies and his promise that he would represent them in Washington flipped a lot. Look, we had some 700. Is that how many counties voted for Obama? That in the end twice. How many of those, again, flipped to?
1/3.
1/3 of them. I mean, so these are people who, they're kind of in the middle. They voted for the president before, President Obama, but they felt that that administration had not served them.
And just on that point, 13 counties in Michigan alone from 2012. That's an enormous number of counties to have flipped in one presidential cycle.
Yeah, that's true, and I agree with Kim that there was a lot of dissatisfaction amongst white working class voters, but I don't think it explains the victory. I think if you want to understand the victory, you have to first of all admit that this was a national referendum on Barack Obama, 8 years of Barack Obama, and a very weak Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton. And if you look at the white educated, college-educated voters, that number was much higher than what was anticipated in the polls. And things matter at the margin. And I think that margin was a bunch of those people who said they didn't like Trump, but looking at Hillary Clinton and looking at the last 8 years and saying, I can't take any more of this.
That's an important point. We all talked here for weeks about how college-educated Republicans might not vote for a Republican presidential nominee for the first time ever. And in fact, in the end, he won them by, what, about 4 points, something like that, Joe. So how do you see this? I mean, there's a little disagreement here on either side of you about whether it's Obama or...
oh, no, I think Obama was a big reason, too.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, Trump broke through in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, states that Republicans for 30 years have been trying to unlock, and he did it with no money, no field organization, and so it's a remarkable achievement. It's a big shock to the U.S. political system.
But it isn't an overwhelming victory. Okay,
not at all. He won those states by 1%.
It's a plurality. All right, he didn't get 50%. So there was still a contingent quality to this in the sense that they're saying, well, yeah, we're rejecting what we have seen and we're rejecting the Democrat, but we're not fully embracing Donald Trump.
No, if you look at the exit polls, Mrs. Clinton has a higher favorable rating than Donald Trump. I think voters decided that he was a risk worth taking as an agent of change.
Prospect of change.
All right, James Freeman, I go to you last because you are no doubt the most celebratory here. Let me ask you, I mean, where would you put what's your #1 explanation?
Well, I'm here just miles from Mar-a-Lago, coincidentally, but I am celebrating. I think it's a moment where you can talk about the caveats of the overall popular vote and all of those things later. But for now, it is a huge victory. I think we've talked about some of it. He had a message. She had no message. She had basically criticisms of Donald Trump in her advertising and speeches. He was talking about economic revival to a country that was very focused on and needed economic growth I think the repudiation of Obama is a big part of it. And you talk about confounding the experts. Unlike Hillary Clinton, he really improved. You go from the debates last winter, where he seemed to know almost nothing about policy. You get to that last presidential debate
and he still seemed not to know a lot about policy, James. I'm sorry.
He was beating her in a debate on constitutional jurisprudence. He actually knew what the Heller decision on the Second Amendment said. I think he really obviously confounded a lot of experts. He improved, and he had a message. And he was speaking to people that are being ignored.
Okay. Kim, what credit do you give? Joe mentioned the lack of a ground game and the lack of advertising. What credit do you give the Republican National Committee and Reince Priebus?
A lot. The more people look at this, the more this has come out. You know, the RNC had 315 field offices, 7,600 paid employees. They made 24 million home visits, 26 million calls. Just to give you a different...
Were they better on the big data this time?
They were great on the metadata. That was an operation that they have been pouring money to into the last 4 years. But just to give a comparison, in September, Trump had one field office in Florida. Hillary Clinton had 51. The RNC had 62.
Wow.
So and by the way, Reince Priebus, I think the other thing he gets credit for is there were people that wanted him to, at one point, direct more money into advertising. He kept it in the ground game. There were also people that at one point wanted him to abandon Donald Trump and go down ballot. He didn't do that. And I think that that's one reason why you now hear Mr. Trump talking about, perhaps a cabinet position.
All right.